Hello, everyone. Welcome to iMPACT, where we celebrate individuals and organizations who are making a difference in your communities and up and down Florida's Space Coast. I am Kathy King, your host, and today we have a fabulous show for you. You may recognize one of our guests. She is Renee Ruffin-Price, and she is with Be Kind Brevard. And we also have Lorraine Edey, who is with Be Kind Brevard as well. And we're talking about a subject that's near and dear to my heart. I have witnessed it in schools as an educator and among my friends and colleagues in the workplace. And so we thought we would bring you back to a topic about bullying. Summer is here, and we are going to really do a two-part show for you so that we can discover what our best way forward is to combat bullying in our community. So Renee, welcome, and Lorraine, welcome.
Thank you.
Lorraine is going to give you a little bit about the history of Brevard bullying and in our community and in our country, because it's been around for a long time, and I don't think our viewers probably have any idea how far back it goes.
Well, yeah, it goes way back. And I looked at the history because I thought, history is so important to us. So back in and I'm going to look at my note here because
that's fine. Look
I want
away.
to make sure I get the dates right. In 1857 was the first documented incident. Actually, it's a movie that they created. No, it wasn't a movie, I'm sorry. The movie was in 1940. But in 1857, they made a book. I'm sorry, this is really, the book was
It's okay, you're doing well.
Okay, the book was Tom Brown. And what was so interesting about it was this was about bullying. And they later on made this book, Tom Brown, into several movies. The latest is in 2005. And it's about bullying a young man in Canterbury, England. And so the whole story is about how this young man went into a seminary. Then they used to go to seminaries, English schools.
Right.
And his father instructed him to make sure that he stood up for himself. So it's this whole story.
So it's been around for a long time.
It has started way back. And then in 1862 was the first documentation of a 12-year-old boy that was killed as a result of bullying. And then in 1897 was significant data that they were pulling together on bullying. So this goes way back.
It's amazing because I think people feel that our schools is something new and kids are different today and adults are different today, but it's not. It's been around for a long, long time. What exactly does bullying look like? And I think to me, that's one of the most important things, because as an educator, I look at kids and I wonder what the difference between just kidding a kid, kidding around and having little playful things and hurting feelings is different from the actual bullying. So, Renee, would you like to talk about that? Maybe give us an example of what a minor incident of bullying and then a harsher incident of bullying might look like.
Sure. A couple of things. One, it's helpful to understand the difference between normal conflicts, which everyone has, kids have them, adults have them, and then also the bullying. With normal conflict, it's not usually serious. There's a balance of power. Everyone's got equal power. No one's trying to take someone's power away from them. No one's trying to hurt another person, verbally or physically. And it doesn't happen a lot. It's occasional. Whereas with bullying, there's an intent to hurt someone physically, emotionally, verbally. It's repeated behavior, and there's an imbalance of power. One person has it and the other doesn't. So those are some of the differences in helping people understand, because sometimes there's friendly teasing, and then there's hurtful teasing. Friendly teasing might be between two friends. Hurtful teasing is this person I don't like and I'm going to tease them, and so that person's feeling hurt and upset that they're teasing me. But there are some categories of bullying that we'd like people to understand. There's the verbal, which is gossiping and name-calling and taunting. There's the physical, hitting, pushing, and you mentioned the different levels. It can start with mild bullying and go all the way up to, physical, where someone's hurting someone or using a weapon or something. So verbal, physical, there's emotional or social bullying, and that's like when a group of girls is saying, everybody exclude this person, don't let her sit with us at the table, so you're excluding someone, or you're causing people, spreading rumors to have, negative feelings about that person. Gossiping, that's a really big one that most people don't realize is a form of bullying. And when they'll say, well, we've always gossiped, everybody does that, I always ask, how do you feel when you're the person they're gossiping about? Well, I didn't like it. Well, that's a clue that it may not be something we want to do. And then we have intimidation, which is where I might try to force you to do something that you don't want to do, but I'm saying if you don't do it, I'm not going to be your friend, or I'm going to hit you, or something like that. And then there's racial and ethnic harassment, which are the slurs and excluding people because they belong to a certain race or ethnic group. And then there's sexual harassment, which is the following someone around and cornering them, or saying things that are too personal, getting in their face, that type of thing. And that again can be mild to severe in the case where someone's stalking someone. Some of these forms of bullying can actually be crimes, as far as assault or battery or stalking. There's laws about some of these things. So it's important for people to understand these things, because you may be doing something illegal that you don't even realize.
Or you may be the recipient of something illegal that you don't really realize.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
think one of the reasons we wanted to bring this out now is because summer's here and
Yes.
schools are out. And one thing we didn't mention, but we will get into it a little later on in the program, is cyberbullying. And I know most of the time, physical to your face bullying is, you can see that. You can
Yes.
tell what's going on. You know it is. But there is such a huge increase in cyberbullying these days because it's anonymous, and it can be under someone else's name that you don't even know, and it causes sometimes irreparable harm. So tell us a little bit about the cyberbullying cases that you have come up with in this.
Well, I can tell you about one that actually caused the Florida legislator to pass a law in 2008.
Right.
A boy named Jeffrey Johnston, I can't remember what county, he's in the Broward County or somewhere like that, is where
12?
he lived.
He was a young child.
He
yeah.
hung himself.
Oh, gosh.
And there had been the face-to-face bullying that had been occurring, and mom was involved, and she thought things had settled down. Well, when the cyberbullying started, which means it was at home when he came home, if it's on your cell phone, wherever you go, it's occurring, she thought everything had calmed down, and he just withdrew and didn't tell her it was still occurring until she came home and found that he had hung himself.
Oh, gosh.
And as a mom, she said, this has to stop. We have to do something. Not just her, but family, his friends, the community. And it took a couple of years to get the law passed. I think it was passed in 2000, well, it was passed in 2008. I'm not sure which year he died in. But it's called the Jeffrey Johnston Stand Up for All Children Act. And it stipulates it's a cyberbullying policy. So it's got a lot of information in it, and it makes it where if it's happening to you and the situations that are happening to you fit within the guidelines of that law, then you can take legal action. And what the mom wanted was for it to stop, and that's where that power is.
one of the things about Johnson, too, was that when he was being bullied, he went and was proactive. He tried to do something. He was taking karate lessons, things like that, to protect himself. So he did something.
Right.
However, cyberbullying, we can't do anything.
No.
We can't see the other person. We don't sometimes even know who the other person is. So that he felt totally out of control.
And I think people can say things online and on the internet that they would never be able to say to your face, because you're not looking at someone. There's nothing. It just press send and off it goes. So that brings me to another thing that I think is really important for our viewers. Who are the people that bully? I mean, it's very difficult. You always think that the bully is going to be the mean guy who is the tough guy, and he's, on the team, and he's got all of this strength and swagger, but that's really not who ends up being the real bullies these days. And so tell us a little bit about who the bullies are, what they look like.
Well, it's a combination. Some of them, it's about power and control, basically. So some of them are leaders. They can have children, other young peers join them in this bullying. And some of them have very low self-esteem. Some have special needs. We get a lot of that.
Right. That I can
in
understand.
terms of
Seeing that a
special
lot.
needs. So and then we have adults who get bullied. It's not just children. So there's a gamut of, and I don't think it's any personality type, although we can get seduced into, once that bullying process starts, we wind up, it affects our self-esteem, it affects our self-worth, but it doesn't necessarily start out because we have bad self-esteem,
Right.
or we don't have any self-esteem.
Right.
Some of the children don't, and some do.
Because there have been many cases of beautiful young girls who
That's
have just been targeted because they were beautiful young girls, and
Right.
so they've ended up, in devastating consequences. Go ahead.
Well, I wanted to mention what we also find are friends. We were friends last week. We fell out.
Yes,
now we're
I
not
see
friends.
that a lot.
And so, last week you had my password, or you knew how to get into my Facebook. And now, as the person who's upset with me, then you're maybe pretending to be me and cyberbullying someone else, and that person thinks it's me that's doing it. So oftentimes when relationships break up, that's a way of getting back. Particularly sharing personal information is something that comes up. Or you're just hurt that now you've got some new friends and it's not me
Right.
anymore.
And kids these days so much want to be accepted. When someone is no longer your best friend and they turn on you and they're somebody else's best friend today or tomorrow, it causes such anxiety among these kids. And I know you mentioned adults as well. Does that feed into domestic violence?
Absolutely.
And that is a good part of bullying, not just the male, but the female, as well. So you get both of those that are a problem, and of course the kids get sucked into that. And is it often what do kids show the same attitudes they see at home quite often? Or
Many times they do. And we also have television, I mean, the media really shows that it's okay to be violent, basically. Although it's movies, children grow up looking at
Right,
these things. They don't realize it's not real, so they grow up, they learn certain things, and then they take that into their community. Children, when they're going to school, it's a whole different developmental process for them. They're learning to be social beings.
Right.
So other children are important to them. And the older they get, they start to separate from home. So they start to develop that outside group, which is very significant and important to them. So that could be part of the bullying as well, because they choose their groups, and those groups can become a positive influence or a negative influence for
The whole
them.
group can be a bully.
That's right.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
Another part of it, though, as a parent, is learning some of the signs, because you have to learn them. They're not going to, smack you right in the mouth. They're not going to be right there where you're going to see them. But if you look a little bit closer, because you've heard what they are. For example, I know someone whose son would come home famished every day. He was given his lunch money. Every day he was hungry. And it's because someone was taking his lunch money, but he hadn't told his parents. He was embarrassed. He didn't want, people to know. So she started questioning, grades were starting to slip a little bit. So it's just paying attention to changes that occur. He began to get quiet. He wasn't as talkative and as vibrant as he was before. So it's noticing changes. If they're saying things where people don't like me, I don't have any friends, they're feeling differently, maybe they're becoming more aggressive, and that's not the type of personality that they had before. Those are some of the things, if they're not sleeping well, not eating well, losing weight, gaining weight, changes is what you're looking for. Don't want to go to school, don't want to go to the mall anymore, because that's where that person keeps coming, is to the mall.
And why do you think it's that these kids have such a difficult time reporting this and telling someone? Because so much of this could be righted. I mean, I know, again, I've said this before, but as a teacher, you can only address a situation if you know there's a situation. So if if you see something and you say something, but the kids are like, no, it's okay, we're all right, and they're not, how do you press the subject? How do you, how do you move forward with that?
One of the things you can ask your child, if you're thinking maybe it's happening, is not directly say, is someone bullying you? Because they may not want to say that,
right.
But start talking around it. Do you ever notice, I keep hearing about bullying going on at school and in the neighborhood. Do you ever see any of that? Do you know anything about that, and what do you see? And then gradually kind of come around to, well, has that ever happened to you? You've kind of opened the door and the subject, and they're recognizing that you really do want to know. That's one way to approach it.
I think parenting classes are important too, because parents need to know they're not alone in this process. I think that also, because it's a social situation, there's a lot of shame.
I was just going to say.
There's so much shame connected with that. I think even as adults, we don't want to say certain things because we feel ashamed. We should know, or this shouldn't be happening to me, or we're weak. So there is a lot of shame. So if we can really encourage, I have a little thing that says, I am enough.
I love that.
Yeah. So, I would love to start this little, they have these plastic bands that you can wear. I am enough, because children feel that, in that developmental process so much, that they're not enough, they're not good enough. And the bullying is going to exacerbate that. So I think if parents, even if they could watch movies together, it might be really movies on bullying, like this movie, Tom Brown. I think it would be a great movie for parents to look at and to see. But there's a lot, and you mentioned the book yesterday.
Yes, Patricia Polacco has a fabulous book out called Bully, and it's very current. It's not, it talks about cyberbullying, and the kids may start out, it's a baby book, blah, 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 because it is a picture book. But they get toward the middle of it, they start listening and getting into it. It's hard because kids are all unique and they're all different, and it's hard to have children get that sense that they are enough. They are okay the way they are. And I think they're ashamed, and I think that they don't know what to do. And I think there are a lot of kids also who think they deserve it.
Right.
And what happens when that's the case? When because they're bullied at home, they're not, we were taught that one of the life skills is that you lift up and not put down. And so kids aren't lifted up anymore. They're not they're not shown that this is a real, they're special, that they're good, they're okay, and they don't deserve that.
I think one of the things is, as a parent, and this is not going to make some folks happy.
That's okay.
But it's your child,
Yes.
and they need you, and they need your guidance, they need your time, and that takes time to spend time, like you were saying, Lorraine, about watching the movie together. We've got our jobs and this and that, but this is might be the only opportunity we have to build that self-esteem, to make them recognize that I care about you, so when something's not right, you're going to come to me. But it does mean carving out that time, all the time.
I think also generationally, in each generation, we see something different. In my generation, it was teasing, maybe some
Right.
bullying, but it was violence has increased
Yes.
more and more. So I think it's so important, and families have had more and more stress, financial stress, job stress, just environmental, the stresses that we are exposed to.
Financial stress.
Right, absolutely. So when we look at this, it's very difficult. So I want parents to know it is difficult to have children nowadays.
Absolutely.
It's very, very difficult. And you've
Doesn't
heard,
that make you excited?
right? Yes.
Our
it's-
viewers are going, yay, it's tough to have a kid.
It is. I wouldn't want to have a kid now. I'd be
goodness.
like a really nervous wreck. But however, out of that has developed what they call the helicopter moms. Have you heard?
Right, absolutely.
So, and those,
I know
and
a
I
few.
don't just want to say moms because I'm sure dads too.
Yeah.
However, that's the name. But what I want them to understand is that hinders a child just as well as a child not getting the
Right.
support, the attention that they need. When we're overprotective, it doesn't support the child in becoming self-sufficient and being able to verbalize what they feel and how they feel, because so much of it is the parent. So go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, how do you get rid of the mean kid? How do you get rid of the mean girls and the meanness that I see in so many of our kids? Because I know the parents sometimes will get their kid to be strong, and they'll get them to be, I am enough, and then that comes over as being mean, and I'm better than you. So where does that leave the kids who don't get that, and the kid who comes in and just says, I have better clothes, I have more money, I have a better house, I have better everything, and you don't?
I think it goes back to something you mentioned before, Lorraine, about parenting and classes and teaching what we don't know, because we don't know what we don't know.
Absolutely.
And so we have to feel okay that we need to learn. If you have a child on this end, and maybe you've helped them to feel confident and whatnot, and they've kind of gone to an extreme, then we might need someone to help coach us how to bring that back. It's not something we just know how to do because we're parents or grandparents, but sometimes we don't want to feel like we need to ask someone,
Right.
help me with this. There's that whole stigma of, well, I shouldn't have to be trained how to do this, but actually we do.
We do.
We do. We need to learn what we don't know.
And the frightening thing is it's changing every day.
It keeps changing.
That's the thing.
Yes, it does.
I think it's so important that as a community, because it takes a community to be able to embrace the parents, to be able to embrace these young children that don't feel, I don't have that.
Right.
Some other children have, I don't have that. But for the role of you as a teacher, such a powerful, significant role. So to support the teachers, that's what Be Kind Brevard is all about.
Right.
That we hope that we can somehow support and empower the community to come together, because there are some parents, there are some families that they don't have extended families.
Right.
You know, and it's very difficult for them to operate on their own.
They just don't have
Right.
enough.
They don't have the
strength
resources.
and resources.
Right.
I know our wonderful new superintendent of schools, Dr. Blackburn, this year has decided that the theme for Brevard is social and emotional intelligence, and I applauded when I heard that, because I thought that is so what Brevard needs. On all monetary levels. I mean, in every school, to know how to handle these situations socially and emotionally for these kids, because you know, we can teach them all of the book knowledge we want, but if they don't know how to survive in our world and survive with the resources to get through life, no matter what they come up against, it's going to be a frightening thing. I know also that we talked about community and home and the different places that bullying occurs, and you were also saying that the kids there are different signs for kids, and you mentioned earlier when we were speaking about the girls and the boys and the adults that they all manifested bullying differently. Can you give me a little bit of background on that and how?
First of all, when boys bully, it's more about hierarchy.
Right.
You know, they don't necessarily, it could come in a group, but it's more one-on-one.
Right, physical strength
Right,
type thing, yes.
The hierarchy. Girls are more socially oriented. As women, we know we love to socialize, so we come
Don't we
together
just?
I know. That's how we bond. That's
I
how the
know.
girls bond. So they bond around something that's not positive in terms of their social interaction.
Right.
You know, so they get together and they go against another girl. You know,
It's a frightening thing and an incredibly interesting subject. I know I just want to, we'll stop right here for this segment of the show. We are coming back for part 2 of our bullying episode. I'm Kathy King, your host, and I hope you're learning a lot about bullying. We are going to address in the second segment some solutions on what to do if you feel your child is being bullied or you are being bullied, or what we can actually do to make our community and our schools and our kids safer and stronger, and make this just a better place to live for the future, especially for our kids in Brevard. So we will be back with part 2, and again, thank you for joining us on iMPACT.
More information about this program is available online at millermediagroup.org.